over in Iraq, just like Bush said 7.5 years ago, that the military operations are now over, and he was wearing a G.I. Joe outfit, and he was wearing an aviator flight suit, and he was so tough, walking around with his arms like this. Oh, I'm tough. Mission accomplished. Oh, yeah. And it's the same thing here. It's the same operation. They're just taking the troops out of Iraq that are leaving, keeping a bunch there, and moving them to Afghanistan to menace Pakistan. U.S. troops will still be in combat and taking on Islamicist militants in Iraq, even as the American military moves to an advise and assist role with a smaller force, officials said Thursday. The withdrawal of U.S. Combat Brigade, we now have Brigade Homeland for us, the enemy here in America, on Thursday was hailed as a symbolic movement for the controversial American presence in Iraq more than 7 years since the invasion that toppled Saddam Hussein. But the remaining 50,000 troops and 100,000+ contractors will no longer have a formal combat mission after September 1st. They will be well-armed and possibly coming under fire as they join in manhunts for al-Qaeda figures and other extremists. And they had this army captain on with this real sweet little NPR. You could tell everyone on there and all their main intelligence operative guests have this real calm, sweet, non-threatening voice. And he said, we're still going to be there fighting Al-Qaeda. Fighting Al-Qaeda. Bush 4 years ago put out a press release at whitehouse.gov saying they're running 3 Al-Qaeda groups out of Iraq against Shiite Iran. I mean, Al-Qaeda on record works for our criminal so-called government. The people they're over there killing are political dissidents. That's who they're murdering.
We are on the march. The empire is on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Google is now publicly admitted to be a CIA, NSA creation. But then the private individuals that run it, they get to then profit from the government protection they're given, the government seed money they were given to create Google. I was listening to MSNBC 2 days ago, and they were saying, why doesn't Google spend more money on the divisions that it has, like web search and advertising, that is making over 90% of its profit? Why is it branching out to take over every area of the web? And they said it's almost like the analyst was saying they're aggressively waging war on every other company and wanting to dominate the web itself. Well, congratulations, you figured it out. Their stated goal is to take over the internet and to be the internet and then to be able to censor and control the web. Just like the Pentagon when they were ramming tanks and running over people and shooting people at Waco, they said, this is not an assault. And then people would come up with their hands up, they'd shoot them. That's on record. It's the same thing. Google's name, don't be evil. Its slogan, it's the opposite. Now, people say, well, why do you use Google then? Why do you use YouTube? Because that's where the war is. To a great extent now, that's the internet. That's the web. Federal courts will rule for Google in cases when they're clearly violating people's copyright, doing whatever they want. But then separately, even other big companies, the courts will rule against. It's just like Tyson Chicken has a global oligopoly, near monopoly, not just here but in Asia, over chicken. And they're allowed to have, in some cases, hundreds of times violations per packing plant that their competition is, because they are the consolidator. They have been chosen. Same thing with BP. They have had more violations in Houston and Texas City alone in the last decade than all other oil company refinery violations combined, because they are owned by the Dutch and British royal family, and they are the top echelon. They're funding the global carbon tax. They bullied the other oil companies in the last 5 years into accepting that. So it's a vertical integration. And we saw an amazing illustration of this yesterday. You did it again. We're 11 for 11. A couple times we've done 2 search terms, so we're actually 14 for 14. But sometimes we've done this 11 times, but a few times I've given out 2 search terms in one day. So technically we're 14 for 14. I've counted them up. We're now 14 for 14. We put out 2 search terms yesterday, Kill Web and Bombshell Barack. that linked to articles that we'd written about Barack Obama being a known CIA operative asset, literally from the time he was a child, his entire family on both sides. That became the #1 search term. Literally hundreds of blogs and news sites reported on it. Big success. They didn't delist that as Google News, as the big aggregator. Those links were still available, though they did remove it as the #1 search term. It became #1. Kill Web was #2, then became #1, then got pushed to #3, then was totally erased, dealing with Google and its stated plans with Verizon and others to begin phasing out the open free internet as we know it. Now, Kill Web, for about 10 minutes, when it was the top search term, was linked to our story. When people saw that term, the top link was the prisonplanet.com article by Paul Joseph Watson that had the headline, Google's plan to kill the internet, part of consolidation of the internet. Or Google's plan to kill the web, part of consolidation of the internet. They didn't just delist the term kill web. Suddenly, the Wall Street Journal in live time came out with a blog with the term kill web separately. That replaced it, and they removed the prisonplanet.com article from searchability on Google News. We have never seen that. In live time, Google did not want you reading that article by Paul Joseph Watson. We are effectively challenging the globalist. The listeners are our power. You're taking action. InfoWars and Prison Planet are rising stratospherically in their ratings. InfoWars now in the top 500 sites in the world. And if it continues to grow, it'll be in the top 100 within a year. A year after that, it'll be in the top 50. I mean, this is incredible. This has got the system worried, ladies and gentlemen. They've hacked us. They've attacked us. They've harassed us. They've done things I don't even get into on air because that would feed into their operations. The point is, we're having a real effect, and that's why they've intensified their attacks, and they're only going to intensify them more. Now, the video analysis that it's 15 minutes long that goes along with the articles Paul Watson has written about this subject is at prisonplanet.tv. Get it, share it, burn it to disk, give it to everyone you know, because in 15 minutes we boil down the Google/government Verizon takeover of the web that they're now attempting. And the name of the video is Google Plans to Kill Web, an Internet Takeover Agenda. And I like to give these videos first to prisonplanet.tv members, but what we're going to do is we are going to have it uploaded in the next hour to the Alex Jones channel at YouTube as well for viral spread. So please get it. When you get behind a video, it can get tens of millions of views, routinely over 500,000. Another serious strike using their system to expose what's happening. Now, the average Google worker is compartmentalized. It's like the average cop is good and is compartmentalized, or the average CPS worker is compartmentalized and isn't that bad. Just like the average, person working for the CIA is compartmentalized, or the FBI. But there's no doubt Google's a government front, that's admitted, and there's no doubt it is not even running a business plan. It is running a full spectrum dominance takeover of the web operation. So get the video from prisonplanet.tv, get it out to everyone. Google Plans to Kill Web, an Internet Takeover Agenda. That's the name of the video and the name of the censored article. And great job to everybody making both those search terms #1. Now, I want to get into economic news, but I want to get into this first. Yesterday, I noticed that organically, the #3 and #6 search terms, when I happened to look at it, were Bilderberg Group and Bilderberg Club, because Fidel Castro read Daniel Estelin's book, which is excellent, Club Bilderberg, or the Bilderberg Club, and talked about how, yes, there's this global group of elitists running the planet. I noticed Fidel didn't talk about the fact that communists in China and Russia, to a full extent, funded the communist operation to create a false bipolar enemy to fight against. I agree with Joel Skousen yesterday. They didn't run the Soviets. They didn't run the Nazis. It's on record. They created them and funded them as an enemy they could then destroy. and had intelligence operatives from their founding throughout their hierarchies. So